things get even worse for competitive Pokemon as we learn about the 2025 Pokemon Championship Series, where changes to the world's qualification structure has people upset. This is just another Verlicify always right, because I've been against championship points in Pokemon since the system was introduced, since it was always pay to win. You win a few premier challenges where 7 people show up, you go to every regionals and get top 64, boom, somehow that makes you a world's caliber player. But now it's even worse and more pay to win, and that's why people are upset, because it's a flat cutoff. Only the top 125 championship point players will receive an invite to Worlds instead of a flat amount. And it's only the top 75 for Pokemon VGC, and they changed it to where internationals counts towards your best finish limit. So if you have the money to make it to all 3 internationals, you just get an advantage over anyone else trying. Now let's see how much of a difference that makes, because currently it takes 500 championship points to qualify for Worlds, but with this, the cutoff becomes 623, and then we have confirmed cheater right there on the spot. Like, that's the crazy thing about Pokemon VGC. Like, you barely have to scroll. There's always a cheater on screen. Brady Smith, guy got disqualified. He kind of started the whole, like, wait a second, everyone's getting disqualified at Worlds for using hatch Pokemon, and then tried to defend it. And then we get to the higher rankings, and just the greatest hits of the cheaters we've been covering for the history of this channel. So great, the system just rewards cheaters even more. But not having a best finish limit of 1 for an international when the championship points are so different, like, an international is worth more than 2 regionals. That's insane. So yeah, you go to 3 internationals, 3 regionals, like, whoever can do that just has a much better chance of getting to Worlds regardless of their placements. It doesn't matter if you get first place at 2 regional championships. If you don't have the money or time to go to 2 internationals, you don't get to go to Worlds despite having consistent performance. Now, the only people winning regionals these days are cheaters, so the whole system's corrupt anyways, but like, wow. How can they make a system so bad? This is so bad, and has always been so bad, it really feels like another Verlicify always right, that Play Pokemon only exists to launder money to friends of people in the Pokemon company that are allowed to cheat. Tord, Michael Pramlott, Wolf Glick, they're allowed to have advantages by cheating, and then they're more likely to win events because of it. Then they get money, and that prize money allows them to participate in more events. Also with like social media culture now, if you actually like win events, you get more attention and fame, and then you can convert that into ad revenue and further support, which makes it easier to participate in more events and then rank higher and then get to Worlds and so on and so forth. It's such a broken and corrupt system. It's unbelievable. Also, another thing I never understood were the online competitions, that the global challenges now reward a good amount of championship points, but it's only a best finish limit of 3. So like, if you can't make it out to every regionals, but you do well in global challenges, you don't get to stack as many points. Like, why does the Pokemon Company, like, it's not, like, what's happening here? Why does the Pokemon Company want you to spend like $10,000 in travel, hotel, and expenses to participate in enough regionals and international events to then have a chance at spending thousands more dollars to travel to Worlds, instead of just trying to find the best Pokemon players in a region and make sure they make it to Worlds like they deserve? It's been really sad watching the dream of becoming a Pokemon World Champion and proving yourself as the ultimate Pokemon Master just become worthless because cheating is allowed and it's only cheaters winning events, and it's always been that way, but also impossible because it's completely inaccessible, and it's not always been that way, but it's always been like kind of rough. I knew for a fact I was the best Pokemon player in the world in 2008. How could I prove it? I couldn't, because the only qualifiers were in California and New York. And I think they did have like a last chance entry in Orlando, and I did live in Florida, but I lived in Miami. So I couldn't make it out to Orlando as a 15-year-old to actually like prove myself. So it's like, yeah, there weren't a lot of events back then, but it was a dream. It felt achievable. Like, one day I'm going to build up, I'm going to work, I'm going to compete, and I'm going to be able to make it and qualify for Worlds. And the system used to be a lot better, where you had to do well at regionals to then get an invite to nationals. There wasn't no internationals garbage. Like, you had to earn your nationals invite for regionals, which means there wasn't a reason to like have to go to 5 of them unless you couldn't top. And I believe it was top 16 at nationals, maybe for a year or two. It was like top 32 at nationals, gets to go to Worlds. Wow, what a completely fair system. All you have to do is prove you're one of the best players in your area, to make it to the national event, prove you're one of the best players in the country, and then you get a shot at Worlds. It's not that hard. And that's what online challenges should be as well. Also, they're much more fair, even though there's still tons of hatch Pokemon online, but it means like you're not going to have your strats leaked, you're not going to have potential other cheating methods that other players are going to use against you. You go online, you match up, and then it just comes down to the raw battle. And if you get first place in a tournament where 100,000 people are entering, you shouldn't get half the points of a regionals. You should just go straight to Worlds. Like, depending on how many global challenges they have. Also, Japan, they still have their own system where it's online qualifiers, in-person internationals, best players go to Worlds. Like, Japan has it figured out. Why is the Pokemon Company International so corrupt? But for a global challenge, if you get top 4 outside of the Japanese participants, which don't really earn championship points anyways, why don't you just get to go to Worlds? Or why don't you get a fat enough travel stipend to actually make it to an international event? Why isn't it just the nationals qualifying you for Worlds? Like, that would be the sickest thing ever. Also, the global challenges are much better at determining skill when you have to win like 39 out of 45 battles to get top 4 or something like that. And then it also comes down to opponent weight for the ELO system. So, like, how does that not work? Like, you got 6 chances to get top 4, maybe top 8 if it's about going to a national event or something, and then maybe you get a bit of a stipend for like top 8, or at least like if you only have to go to one event because you qualified online and then you just need to save up for like the one event to try at nationals, like that is the most fair it could be. And then winning against 100,000 other players, or even getting like top 100 against 100,000 other players, like that should mean something, but it really doesn't. And then like, yeah, we have the championship points and everything's broken, and now it's not even like, oh, well, I can map it out to where it's like, I just need 500 points to qualify. No, too many people were qualifying because everyone's pay to win, and they're all cheaters anyways. So that's like, nope, only top 75 gets to go to Worlds. The fattest wallet wins. Which is another insane element of this, because everyone's crying about how Pokemon is inaccessible, when even if you take the lie that it costs $500 to compete in VGC, even though you only need $60 for 3 years to participate on the base game. Like, you don't have to buy DLC. It's not a prerequisite to enter that you need Pokemon Sword and Shield. You're allowed to trade for Pokemon. It's not the Pokemon Company's fault that everyone is cheating, and it's impossible for anyone to get legal Pokemon because they only know cheaters. Like, that's what Worlds prove, and I've already been talking about this for over a decade. Everyone's cheating, so it's no surprise that they can't get legal Pokemon. That's not an accessibility issue, that's a cheater issue, which has needed to be dealt with for well over a decade, because you look at 2012, where Ray Rizzo and Wolf Glick were just having a cheat fest in the finals with perfect, shiny, hidden power legendaries in Generation 5. 100% hacked. It's so weird we never heard these complaints before Generation 8, where we actually had the national decks, and you had to dig back a couple of games, and maybe even generations, to actually transfer the Pokemon you needed to compete. Also, I don't know how it's an accessibility issue where Pokemon Sword and Shield is one of the highest selling games ever. So going back and getting the Urshifu for DLC, you don't even have to buy it because millions of people have it. And it's also really easy to speedrun an Urshifu. So there's like again, if there was no cheating in Pokemon, the Pokemon trade economy would be beautiful, because you could get a full team. Like, let's just say cheating was impossible. No matter what you traded for was always going to be a legal Pokemon because hacking didn't exist or whatever. Or the hack check and online verification was like flawless. The ideal world that never existed. But like, you could get a full team of competitive ready Pokemon by just speedrunning Urshifus. And if you get that down to like an hour and a half, which is what I think some people are able to do, maybe even closer to an hour, in like 8 hours, you just trade off 6 untrained Urshifus and then receive a full team of competitive Pokemon. That's the beauty of what competitive Pokemon should be, but it also isn't an accessibility issue to have to play Pokemon games to compete in Pokemon. Also, you get these on sale as a used copy or something, and the Nintendo Switch is the highest selling Nintendo console. Also, more people bought the previous game than the current one, so what shows is that this scenario literally never existed. That the person starting competitive Pokemon in 2023 who had never played Pokemon before, had no previous games, no transfer, no Pokemon home setup, needed to buy a Nintendo Switch that had to buy Pokemon Sword and Shield and the DLC on top of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet before the DLC came out, re-releasing a lot of legendary Pokemon. Like, this person didn't exist. It never happened. Also, that means these entitled brats, who are all cheaters. Like, that's the thing. It's cheaters getting caught and then making up excuses because, wow, it turns out cheaters are dishonest liars. And I've proven that about Blissey multiple times over at this point. But these entitled brats want the barrier of entry to competitive Pokemon to be so low that a first-year player with zero competitive experience, with zero previously owned Pokemon games, should qualify for Worlds. So even in its current system, this is why Pokemon is objectively one of the most accessible forms of competition ever. It's cheaper to get into than any esport, it takes a lot less time than any game that requires dexterity, and then compared to sports, that's just like, no, sports are always more expensive and more time intensive, and then a game like chess is going to cost thousands or tens of thousands of dollars and tens of thousands of hours before you even have a chance at never getting Grandmaster because you'll never get good enough. And then they complain about it costing a few $100s to get into competitive Pokemon, to have a chance at winning thousands of dollars in prize money. So even if that lie was true, that you needed to spend $500 before you're allowed to win a single game of VGC, you get 16th at a regional championship, and your entire investment is paid off for. No other form of competition has that. And then if you actually do really well, now like all of your travel expenses are paid for, your next couple of events are paid for, and then Worlds has a $30,000 prize. So in theory, if you are a god tier Pokemon player, you actually like make a living off of playing competitive Pokemon, but unfortunately the only people doing that these days are proven cheaters like WolfeyVGC. And the crazy thing is, it costs like $70 to enter a VGC event. So the entrance fee costs more than the game. And while people are complaining about that, it's like, well, yeah, that now that proves like this has like the games themselves or the getting into competitive has no accessibility issues compared to like everything else. When like, oh, it actually costs thousands of dollars, potentially $10,000 to have to get your 6 best finish limits and then travel internationally 3 times, depending on where Worlds is. But I mean, like a Hawaii vacation, that's going to be expensive no matter what. So that's why it's always like I'm always happy to see people spend thousands of dollars just to get disqualified for being cheaters. That's always cool. But overall, like, it's such a mess. It's such a nonsensical system. How is the Pokemon Company this inept? It's not the Pokemon Company Japan. It's the Pokemon Company International, which I've proven is, like, corrupt and just making the most bafflingly stupid non-esports decisions ever. The wrong people got in. We got Chris Brown. We got Scott Glazzo. We got Cybertron. We got Ray Rizzo. We got whoever else is behind the scenes. It's just like, yes, it's actually just money laundering. That's all the Pokemon Company International is. It's money laundering to their friends they allow to cheat because there's no actual dream of being a Pokemon World Champion. It's all cheaters. It's all pay to win. And that there's no reason to compete. And now there's even less reason to compete because there's more pay to win and there's more cheaters. And the system is completely broken when there's the chance to just kind of be like properly rewarding if you're a good, ambitious player that wants to be a champion. No, that dream is dead. That dream's been dead for the decade I've been making Pokemon content. And even then some. Now, a lot of people did complain and they said like, oh, we're going to reevaluate this stuff. So we don't know if there's going to be changes for 2025, if it goes to 2026. It doesn't matter anyways because we're getting Pokemon Legends, so we're not even getting a competitive game. And we have GS Cup Generation 9, which is like the most garbage format I could ever imagine. It's bricked. Verlicify always right. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.